Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video on my channel, and today I'm going to talk about the Fetch API and I will show you guys some examples about its usage. So Fetch API is out now for some years and has been a part of the JavaScript language, but still many devs are not using it and relying on jQuery or other third-party libraries to communicate with the server. So I decided to make a video about it so that more and more people can know about its usage. So in this video what I will do is I will talk about a little bit introduction, and then after that I will show you some examples. So I'm just going to list down the things which I will cover in this video. So first will be the introduction, and then I will talk a little bit about its syntax, and then I'll show you some examples. Alright, so before that I'm going to tell you about this dev environment which I'm using to create these examples. This is the Visual Studio Code, and there's a file which is index.html, and I'm running live server extension in this VS Code. So this extension basically reloads the page over and over again whenever we make any changes and save the contents, so we don't have to refresh the web browser every single time. So if you want to know more about this live server after this video, you can basically go to the Mozilla Dev Network and you can find pretty much everything about it, although we don't need to use all of these advanced features in our normal usage, but still if you want to know about it, then you can go to this page. And then I'm going to use this JSON placeholder website's help to get some sample data for using the Fetch API. I'm going to use this get request for the users to get the list of users, and you will see in a little while how it all works out. Alright, so Fetch API is, I think it's a game changer because it is compatible with the JavaScript's inbuilt promise architecture, and I will show you how you can leverage that in your applications. Fetch API is mostly used to fetch resources from the network or to post data on a URL. It also has its use with service workers when creating progressive web apps or PWAs, and also when implementing push notifications. It is similar to XML HTTP request, but there are some features which are new to it. This API returns a promise, and if you are not yet aware of the JavaScript's promise architecture, which includes async await functions or keywords for functions, then I would suggest to learn them first. In any case, you should watch this video if you are familiar with making network requests and responses, and hopefully this video will act as a crash course for devs who are new to it and a good refresher to those who already know about Fetch. So after this I'm going to tell you about the syntax. The syntax is pretty easy. What you simply need to do is you need to call this fetch function. You can call it directly because it is a part of the window object. So, and I think you already know that you don't need to type window dot something or the property name after before every function or property which you need to access. So fetch function accepts two arguments. First is the URL, and the second is an object which are basically the options which you can provide with the Fetch API. For a normal get request you don't need to provide the options, but if you want to post something and if you need to provide additional information like headers and body, and maybe there are many other options which you can set, like the integrity, which basically means that if you need to tamper proof your requests which you are sending to the server by hashing the contents and sending the hash value along with the request, then you can use the integrity option, etc. There are more options which you can look on this website for Fetch API on Mozilla's Dev Network. But I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm just going to show you some pretty basic examples. And this Fetch API basically returns a promise object as a return value. So the way in which you need to use it is that what you can use it, you can get the return object and then maybe set it somewhere in a variable, or you can use it directly by using then and catch functions after calling it immediately. So what you can do is, so I'm just going to get the response, get the promise object in a variable, and then we can simply call the then and catch functions on it, call by supplying the callbacks. So the function which we will supply as a callback in the then part will have the response as an argument. So before we use this response, we need to get the JSON data out of it. There are basically several different properties of this response, and you know what, I can really show you right now because we need a URL, but I will show you in a moment. So what we need to do is, before we can use it, we need to get the JSON data, and to do that we can simply call the JSON function, which is a part of this response object, and then just this JSON function also returns a promise, and we can queue another then on it. Now this callback will have the argument of the data, which is the JSON data, and then we can do whatever we want with this, with the data which we are getting. And then in the catch we can supply another function. In this case I'm writing arrow functions, and you can basically log the errors, and you will get the error as an argument over here. There's some error plus error, and that's it. Alright, so this is the basic usage. So fetch is not defined. Alright, it's not gonna work anyways. Alright, so I'm just going to comment out this piece of code right now, and I will show you some real examples of how we can use it. So there are some examples which I can show you. The first one is the basic usage using promises, and then I will show you let's say, alright, using async await feature, and then I will show you an advanced example using immediately invoked function expression, which is a self-executing function which executes immediately whenever the compiler parses it. Alright, so first is the basic usage with promises. So what I will do is, for this example I'm going to need this URL to make the GET request, and let's just first get this URL in a string and in a variable, and then it's pretty easy. After this we just need to supply the URL over here, and then as I have shown you above, we don't really need the catch, but in a production application, I mean, you obviously need the catch part to catch any errors and show the notification to the user. And then over here let's write an arrow function, which is a pretty clean approach than using normal functions. Now we have the response over here. Now let's get the data of the response. This will give us another promise. Now I'm just going to log this data in the console so that you can see the data which we are getting. Alright, so this is the data which we are getting. These are the users which are in the JSON format and which we are getting from this URL by making a GET request. Now we can do so many things with this data. We can create HTML UI components out of this data. We can I don't know, whatever the application requires, we can work for it. All right, so now you know what, I'm also going to finish this catch part too. And actually what you can do is, instead of using the normal string, you can use a template string. So there is an error and then error, that's it. Alright, now I will show you the same example using the async functions. So what I will do is, I will simply create a new async function and let's call it fetch users. The spelling is wrong. Alright, fetch users. Now before I do that, I'm just going to comment out this piece of code. So now fetch users will execute the same code. So fetch URL, but over here we need to get the response in a variable response, and this is going to be an async request, so we need to provide the await keyword. So this await keyword will make sure that when this request is completed, then the result will be, the return value will be set in this response. The return value is basically the argument which is supplied in the callback function in this whenever this then function is called. Alright, so after this we will need the JSON data, and for that we can make another async request or another async operation. So response dot JSON, this will also need an await keyword because this is going to be asynchronous, and then we can simply use the data as we like to use it. And nothing is happening. Alright, we need to call this function actually. So fetch users, and there it is, the 10 users which we are getting from this URL. Alright, so after this I can show you how we can spice things up somewhat, and for that I'm going to show you kind of a different but kind of advanced example. If you have already seen them, then I don't know, it should act as a refresher, but I don't think most people actually do programming in this way, but it's a lot cleaner. You don't need to actually declare the function and then call it. If you are going to use it for only a single time, you can basically enclose the entire functionality in a self-executing function. So the basic way to write a self-executing function is to write a function and then enclose it in parentheses and then call it immediately after it is declared. But over here I'm not going to use the normal functions, I'm going to use an arrow function, which is a lot cleaner approach, and this arrow function is going to be asynchronous in nature. Alright, so now let's not make a get request this time. I'm going to show you how to make a post request over here using IFE for post request, because we have already seen it how get requests are simple. You just need to supply a URL and then you can parse the response. Oh, and another thing, you can also check if the request is processed successfully or not by checking the status, and all those properties which are related to the status of the request are part of this response object. So you can first check the status. If it's 200, or I think the correct status lies between a range of I think 200 to 250. I'm not sure about it, but yeah, you can check for the value of the status, and then you can go ahead and execute your code or show any meaningful error messages to the user, because the catch block, it will only come into picture when the request fails because of maybe because of a network failure or something like that. If something happens on the server, then I don't think this catch block is going to be executed. So you need to keep that in mind and perform proper request or status checking before doing anything else. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to make a post request, and it is actually similar to the get request, but we also need to supply the options object, the additional information for the post request to execute on the server. So what I will do is I will simply create a new user and I will post it on this URL, but this time the method is going to be post. The default method is get when we are not supplying any options, when we are just supplying the URL. So I'm just going to create a dummy user over here, const user, and then I'm going to supply some properties. We don't need to supply everything, we just need to supply the information which we need to save. So what I will do is I will just supply let's say ID, and then let's also provide the name, and the username should be there too, I think. Actually, let's just keep it John because username should be short. And then I'm going to supply the email. Alright, so this is the user, and after this I'm going to create an options object which will be provided as an additional argument to the fetch function when we will call it. Alright, so first I'm just going to provide the name of the method which will be post, and then we need to provide the headers. So these headers basically tell the server what kind of request this is, and this is going to be an object. Basically this is going to be a collection of key value pairs. So the key names the key values are used to determine the type of the request. So the first one is the content type, and this should be application JSON because we are providing a JSON content, and then there should be an accept header too, and this should also be, I think, application JSON. Alright, and now we need to provide a body, because in the body we are going to provide the information of the user which we want to get saved on the server. So we can provide the user over here, but this user right now is a JavaScript object and we need to convert it to JSON. So what we can do is we can simply call JSON.stringify. So JSON.stringify will convert this object into a JSON string. Okay, this will not be here, and that's it. Now the only thing which we need to do is we just need to repeat what we were doing over here. So I'm just going to copy this. Now URL will be there, but we also need to supply the options. And what will happen is whenever we will post a new user on this URL, then the new user will not actually get added on the server of this website, jsonplaceholder.tapicode.com. but in order to make sure that our request is successful, then this server will actually return the user which we will the information which we will supply as an argument, as a return value or as a JSON data. So if the JSON data, if this data will match this user object, then we can be sure that our request is successful. So let's do this, and I've saved it and it should be there. Right, so as you can see, let me just comment out this one to only see the meaningful information in the console. So I think our request is successful, so because we are getting this new user as an object in the console. And yep, that's the way to make a post request using this fetch API. And we can also make use of other methods like put, delete, etc. to save or update or delete existing information on the server. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video, guys, and I hope that you have understood what I just explained in this video. And if you have any questions after this, then please use the comments for that. And basically you can tell me anything, just say hi and I will reply to you. So after that, please like this video if you think it's useful to you, and also please subscribe to this channel if you want to be the first to know about the latest updates. And yep, thanks for watching this video guys, and have a nice day.